Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone, if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Brandi on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from Colorado, which we are recording this the day before Nebraska plays Colorado in football. So if you see a little bit of animosity or hear a little bit in this conversation, it's all in good jest. But let's be honest, they probably will win, knowing all the hype that they have. But before we get into all that, because God forbid that'll be 45 minutes before we even talk about anything health and fitness, Brandi, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored.
Well, I ask this all the time as my first question. What's the weather like in Colorado today?
It is about 85 degrees and sunny and hot. That's current temperature. The mornings have been like around 50. So we kind of have that fall vibe that's happening. Colorado gets bipolar this time of year. So it's a little cool. We get hot and then it will slowly start to taper off the hotness.
You're going to sit there as a Coloradoan and talk to a Minnesotan about bipolar weather? You're going to try to lecture me on bipolar weather? I invented no, I'm just kidding. But it's ridiculous. Like, it was 95 here last week and now it's already down to like 65, and it's just, who knows? I mean, that's perfect weather for me. That's driving weather out there where I can finally, relax and not have to do my cardio just drenched in absolute sweat. But why don't we just get right into it? Why don't you first off just give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to adapt this lifestyle and how it led to you becoming a bodybuilder?
All right. So I would say that pretty much my entire life I've had an athletic background. So did some sort of activity, was a dancer, cheerleader. In high school, I ran track and field. People would be very surprised to learn that I ran the 110 high hurdles. I'm 5'3". I did quite well in the sport. And I also weightlifted from high school. We had a pretty awesome PE instructor, Coach Williams, who also coached the football team. And so that's kind of where my weightlifting journey began. And I did that off and on through periods, all through my 20s and 30s. I would say that like this specific journey with bodybuilding began last year in 2022. But right before that, I had reached out to a personal trainer that I had worked with, because it was like after COVID, everybody was baking bread and eating all the things. I had gained a little bit of weight, and I also had 2 babies prior to that. So a little bit of inactivity, and was looking to step it up a notch. And I had my 45th birthday approaching and said, "Hey, Rosie, I know that we've worked together in the past. Can we maybe start this journey and get me ready for a photo shoot," which I was doing to celebrate my 45th. And so we went down that path, and, I was in the best shape, in quite a few years. Took a little break, joined Orange Theory, did a transformation challenge, and gained a little bit more muscle, lost some fat, had pretty good body recomp. And then after that, I'm like, so what's next? Right? I've always been very goal oriented. And so I chatted with her about, what do you think about me competing? And that's really where that transpired. So it was like beginning of 2022 that I really went down the path of having a show in mind and stepping on stage.
So this has only been a year and you look like this. You're going to try to tell me that?
Well, I think that's where my athletic background and having lifted weights, it's not as though, and a lot of people will see that and ask me like, "Hey, you just started this a year ago and you look the way you do. I'm going to do the same thing." And everybody's different, right? So I think, I had a foundation of muscle from doing all the things that I had done prior. And bodybuilding just kind of emphasized that. And obviously, with reducing fat, and it kind of showcased what I've been building my entire life.
People with those backgrounds, I've come to find throughout this podcast, yeah, they really do have that advantage when it comes to that. And I normally ask about, what's one body part that really took off for you when you started training, and what's been one body part that's dragged behind. Shoulders was obviously the one that took off. I'm not even going to say it, everyone, because it's just bull craps. But what was one body part that just dragged behind that you've had to train to oblivion to get it to catch up?
I would say my back and my legs equal. Um, Legs have definitely started to bulk up. It's funny. I thought that maybe if you were to look at me, like, wow, she's got a larger bottom. It's less lean. But I'll tell you that as soon as I start to get really lean, like, you can definitely see that there's not a ton of muscle there. So we worked really hard to build my legs. I would say mostly like my quads. I would say glutes as well. And then back, just trying to build that muscle density that's needed for my division.
How do you balance being a mom, being a bodybuilder, your regular job, all that stuff? Because two of those three is enough to drive me crazy. But doing all three of them, like, how do you make it happen?
Support, honestly. I have a really good support system. I would not be able to do it without my husband, helping watch the girls and getting them ready, and doing all the things. It also comes down to having a planner and planning every moment of my day, from work meetings to when I'm working out, my cardio. I'm the type of person that doesn't mind waking up super early. So my alarm goes off at 4:15 in the morning. I've got my coffee ready, and I get my cardio done first thing before anybody's up in my house, come home, get the girls off to school, and then it's straight to work. I also have a very flexible job, extremely flexible. So I work from home, and a lot of my calls are super early in the morning. I work with teams in Pune, India. And so there's flexibility between, getting those early morning calls done, being able to take a break midday while my girls are at school, being able to get my lift in before they come home, and then momming, in the evening. But flexibility with my job, and then support from my husband and him helping me are huge.
Does the family know, like, as you get closer and closer to a show, that maybe we should just leave mom alone a little bit?
Yeah, I think we learned last year, being my first prep, we didn't know what to expect at all. And so I think it kind of took everybody by surprise, how irritable I sometimes got, how things just kind of set me off. And so I think now this prep was a lot easier from that perspective. We all knew what to expect. And I think, like, communication is key, right? Like, my husband knows, as we start to get into those final 4 weeks, like, okay, she's going to need some extra support. If she snips at me, we kind of make a joke of it. And then it's constantly reminding myself that, like, I've chosen this, right? My kids are being themselves, and, just to kind of take a deep breath, and it passes typically. But yeah, I think everybody's now prepared for that.
It's an ever evolving learning experience, this entire journey. And I love to talk about the mental change that happens as well, because most people just notice the physical change. They won't really be able to grasp the mental changes that have happened, and they are, 100 times more important than any of the physical changes. What has this whole journey been like for you mentally?
Yeah, I think it's just made me stronger. Um, obviously you'll hear people talk about, consistency and determination. It's shown, that I've got grit, right? When things get really tough, and they do, being able to push through that. And then like looking back, like, wow, that was all me, right? Yes, you have a coach, but your coach isn't there every minute of the day. So yeah, having perseverance and grit and applying that to everything in life when things get really tough, whether it's at work, understanding that it's temporary and you're going to wind up getting through it.
What's one thing that surprised you the most about this sport that you wouldn't have guessed would have happened before you got started? And when you first got started, what was one thing that surprised you the most?
Just the amount of amazing women that I would meet. It's been amazing. I would say that my Instagram account I opened last year when I started this journey of, going to compete. I wanted to track my progress. I've always been into taking pictures and tracking my progress. I made the decision to open this account to not annoy my friends and family that might not want to see, pictures of me. So I opened up this account, and the amount of women that I've met that are on the same journey, it's just awesome. All very supportive, moms like myself, and just really holding each other accountable. So that's a piece of it. And then most recently, having gone to nationals, North American, and meeting the women there, it's amazing, right? There's so many women on the journey, so many that are on the same path and like-minded, and I don't think I ever would have thought that I would have met them,
On the flip side of that, because I love to play devil's advocate, do you ever fall into the game of comparing yourself to maybe some other competitors that you might know you're competing against and looking? Because that would be my downfall, really, honestly.
Yeah, I think without a doubt. I think especially as you start to get closer to a competition, and uh, maybe it's someone that is going to wind up getting on stage. You're like, wow, like they look amazing in pictures. Like you play that game. Like I have absolutely no idea if they're even in my height class. So yeah, for sure. And then just in general, I look at some of the athletes, the figure athletes, and look at myself and go, like, how am I ever going to compete at that higher level? Because some of them are massive.
Yeah, I shoulder one right before we started recording, so I'm sorry, but good luck, Brandi, competing against that.
Yeah, I would say even when I first started this journey, I thought that I was maybe a bikini athlete. And so immediately my coach was like, yeah, you're not bikini. You're definitely figure. And I had a hard time understanding it. Being at the regional shows and seeing the bikini competitors, I now understand that. I have a little bit too much muscle. That was even feedback from one of the coaches here local. When they asked me, well, what division do you think you fit into? I'm like, well, maybe bikini. They're like, absolutely not. Like, you're not there. So yeah.
Well, it lasted 14 minutes, everyone. But what do you mentioned that you said shoulder day. What do you do for shoulders? Because so many people that I talk to, shoulders is the number one body part that like they struggle with, especially for women. And so when you have a guest like this, that's just the exact opposite. That's like pretty blessed in the shoulder. So what do you even do for shoulder day?
So it definitely changes. Today's shoulder day, I wound up doing barbell presses. I actually use the Smith machine, dumbbell raises, What else? We did flies for back delt, rear flies. Um, really just making sure that you're hitting from all angles. It's my most favorite body part to train, um, because I can see them and I can see the muscle. Something like my legs are not as lean. And so it's a little bit more, challenging, I guess, for me to see the results, to see the pump. So yeah, shoulders are definitely my fave.
So many people that I talk to struggle early on with realizing the fact that there's more than one part of the shoulder. They always tell me, "Oh, I'm going to train shoulders." And I was like, "Oh, what part?" And they're just like, "Oh, the shoulder part." And I'm just like, "Well, there's three
Yeah,
parts, guys. So you got to figure." But again, that's just a beginner thing, and that's one thing that I think a lot of people do struggle with when they get started, is just realizing how body part specific this sport can be, just minutely. How you have
yeah,
to fine tune things. Like,
yes,
it becomes very hard for people to grasp just how little of a tiny bit of a muscle can impact just overall everything. So that's just a huge thing that I like to talk about. But we gotta talk about posing, because that's the hardest thing for so many guests that I've had on. What is your relationship like with posing?
I'm still trying to fine tune it. I am not an expert by any means. I definitely, I would say I struggle with posing still. It's not super natural. I would say that with figure, it might be a little bit easier. You've got your specific poses for comparison. And then for me, it's trying to fine tune my style for my individual routine. I won't be stepping on stage again. I'm pretty positive I won't be stepping on stage again this year. But next year, I'm definitely going to invest more time and effort and probably get a good posing coach. I've got one that I think I'm going to work with and spend a lot more time there.
When it comes to the poses, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite?
Um, I would say front pose is probably my easiest. Um, the side poses, I think I struggle with. And then the back pose as well, just making sure that I'm not like pinching and that I'm opening up and getting that lat spread real good.
How hard was that lat spread? Because so many figure competitors I've had on, that is the hardest thing for them, because it's not a natural thing to do. I've had some guests where it takes them years upon years before they're even able to do it properly.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not, I think just as a female, even guys, I've had men come up to me in the gym, if they see me like posing in between sets and asking like, how do you flare your
That's
lats?
got to be the best feeling in the world for you. Having gym bros come up to you and be like, "How do you do that?"
Yeah, it is kind of, I mean, it's fun. Um, but yeah, it is definitely a challenge. I think once you can feel them, it becomes a little bit easier. But I still struggle with making sure that I'm not, because I don't have a huge back right now anyway. Any type of pinching makes it look smaller. So it's just really a matter of honing in and being able to flare it out.
Well, and I do this game. It might be cruel to some people, but whenever I have a guest that's a little bit older on, I always do the thing where I don't find out their age and then I make my own guess of what I think they would look like. So for you, my guess was 32. So do you get that reaction a lot at all? Because like, yeah, when you said that you're 45, and I knew that you're 45 because I looked at your Instagram page, but like, I was like, what witchcraft is this person on and stuff like that? That you like, do you get that reaction a lot? Because you do not look like an average 45-year-old.
Yes, I do. And actually, I'm 47. Yes. I'm going to thank my mama. Um, I may have some good genes there. But yeah, people do think that I'm younger than I am. It does make me feel good. Yeah.
It's a good problem to have. I don't know if I will be in that category, because just with my family, you look at it, we look like some people in my family look like they're 55 when they're 25. So not body wise, but just they have that face where you're just like, that guy has seen something or something. Like it's just dead in there. But I mean, there's so many more benefits to this lifestyle than just the physical that people talk about. What are some other aspects of your life that you were able to improve with just this extra added either confidence or just mental strength or any other strength that you gained from this sport?
Um, I mean, it's impacted just in general me being in tune with my body, I would say. So, yes, there's a specific, some competitors follow a specific diet. I will always use macros, but with that, my coach is all about micronutrients as well, right? So, it's not about fitting in the Cocoa Puffs and eating that. I know, I know.
One of these days, fingers crossed.
But I've always been a really good eater and, enjoyed vegetables and everything. So it's not like I had a hard time with that. But I think when you're living this lifestyle, you become really in tune. Like I don't eat dairy, except for the occasional pizza, which I just had pizza post show. But when you do eat things, you get the sense of like how it's affecting your body, right? Like the inflammation, the water retention, and how that makes you feel. Even like having those post show cookies, which tasted really good going down. Just not so much, the post effects of that. Like my joints, I could actually feel them. It's so weird, but you become super in tune with your body, I would say. And it makes me kind of sad that some people are probably living that way and feeling all those things. They don't know how good that they could probably really feel if they eliminated certain things, from their diet. So I'd say super in tune with my body from a diet perspective, and then also just really impacting like how you pay attention to, like, especially for someone my age, hormones, right? I don't think that I would have really paid attention as much to my hormones and making sure that things are really balanced. Like, yes, you go to the doctor and they take a test and you get blood drawn and they may tell you that you're within your levels, but if you really start to look at it, you might not be at optimal levels, especially for this lifestyle. I had a situation where last year for prep, I got super, super lean, like 6% body fat, had never been there before. And like looking back, I had a really hard time even like walking upstairs. Like that's how fatigued and tired I was. Well, a few weeks after that last show in 2022, I went and I got my hormone levels checked and I was like in the tank, like 0 across the board. And so, getting that proper support and making sure that your levels are at a place where you can have energy and sustain and do all the things that you need to is just so crucial and important. This prep was a completely different situation. So I would say, again, like I would not have paid that much attention to those things that impact my health, not even just from a lifting perspective, but just having energy to interact with my family and my friends. I probably wouldn't have been so in tune with that had it not been for the sport.
Well, I'm going to give you one of my dumbest gaffes of all time. One of those, what the hell was I thinking kind of things. I was going in for my physical. I think it was either 21 or 22 because you have to get one of those when I think you turn a certain age. Like they recommend you get it. So I did. And the doc said something about like, oh yeah, we'll have your hormones up too. I literally turned to him and said, wait, I thought that was just a woman thing, like hormones. Like I thought that's just what women had. And they looked at me and he's like, are you serious? And I was like, that guys have hormones too? And he's like, yeah, they do. We'll get them back to you. So, because like I never heard men ever mention hormones in mind, unless when they're talking about like, oh, my girlfriend has hormones right now and blah blah blah. So I never heard that mentioned at all. So I just assumed that like that was so. I have a few idiotic moments in my life. If you say the right things on this podcast, I might share one every once in a while with you. So she said the right things. So she was granted with one of my idiotic stories. Hopefully one of these days, hopefully I won't be tempted to say another one the rest of this podcast to make myself look like too much of an idiot. But moving on, because good God, that was embarrassing for me. I have plenty of other ones and I'm tempted to say one right now, but I'm not even going to do it because I need to have a little bit of self-dignity. But when you are getting ready for the show, I mean, so many things happen, your brain just gets so drained. Do you have any funny prep brain stories? Because I like to keep those in a log somewhere and just for laughs whenever I'm feeling down. I just hear about people doing stupid things on prep brain.
Yeah, I probably have quite a few, but the one that I can think of off the top of my head, I had gone into the gym um, to do cardio, and when I went out to my car was actually on. So I had been in the gym the entire time with my car running. The door was locked, but the car was running. I think that was a moment. Yeah.
Was it during the wintertime or the summertime? Because at least it could have been heated up for you or cooled down for you. You never know.
No, it was probably the same time, like September-ish. Yeah.
Hey, trust me, that's not even one of the worst ones I've heard. I've heard ones where it's like, if I didn't enjoy you as a person, that's criminal negligence, basically, where you're just talking. But no, it's just hilarious how people don't understand what goes on behind the scenes to attain that look. They just think that, oh, it's just from the hard work and the training, which it is, but it's also just, it comes with so many side effects that people don't understand, where it's, like you said, you had trouble walking upstairs when people would look at you and be like, she looks so jacked. Like, how is she having problems walking upstairs? Where it's like, people just don't understand
Right.
the internal stuff that happens. So,
Yes.
yep, absolutely. And I mean, to be totally honest, you're not the average looking 45-year-old woman. If you were to walk out in public dressed the way you are right now, you're going to draw people's attention just because it's human nature. When they see something that's not the normal, just be like, wow, that's fascinating. What has that been like for you? And has it gotten easier as you've done a few more preps, or as you've done, like, obviously, like you said, you've been doing it for a year, but as the year's gone on, has it gotten easier for you to accept that? Or is it still kind of one of those things where you're like, okay, this is kind of weird, the attention that I'm getting?
No, I mean, I think the time that I become most self-conscious is when I'm super, super lean, right? Those final weeks. And I kind of go into covered up mode, I call it. So I did get some pretty, I don't want to say negative attention, but sometimes um, it's not it's not positive. People aren't like, wow. It's like whoa, like what's wrong with her? I've gotten some
First of all, I love how they say "what's wrong with you," like as if like something bad happened to you.
Yeah.
That like, what chemical spill did she get through that she got huge? Like, I always find that hilarious that they just word it like that. Like, what's wrong? Like,
Yeah. Well, like, am I sick?
well,
Or,
yeah.
like my face starts to get like really drawn in. Like when you start to get that lean, I now understand why women of my age, when they when they do start to age and they get thinner, they get fillers in their face because it's just not like a super good look. This prep, I didn't get super, super lean. But yeah, so I would say that, you know, it's positive in most cases. Like this past prep, actually, like a week before the show, I had a girl come up to me and she was like giving me, knuckles, and she's like, I just want to let you know I've been watching you the past couple of months, and I think you're yeah. It started making me think, because people typically say, like, at the gym, nobody's watching you. Yeah. And in this situation, she actually was watching me.
Maybe one of your videos, she's just in the corner and you just see a head just like this, just the whole time.
But yeah, I think in most cases it's positive. And I don't really have a hard time with it. I'm happy to answer people's questions.
I have a hack for you. If you ever get super lean again and people are starting to stare at you, just start coughing. Then they'll think that you're sickly or something like that. Just start coughing. You will have free access to anything you want. So it's one thing that I learned during COVID, everyone, if you're not antisocial, which by the way, I'm the exact opposite of that. So it would never apply to me, but I found that out. So that's my little tip and trick, for everyone. But we got to talk about cardio because I hate it more than life itself. When it comes to cardio, I just walk, which is fine by me. But unfortunately, when you become a bodybuilder, you sort of have to sign a deal with the devil when it comes to cardio. What is your relationship like with cardio?
I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm kind of, there's two extremes. One, when I start to get into more that growth mode, my cardio was actually stripped from me. And so then I missed it. I'm like, man, I kind of want to get on the treadmill and walk up, uphill. So that's one extreme that I think people don't understand that happens. The increase in cardio is as you're starting to get into prep, right? And you're getting ready for the show. I would say that, 45 minutes, an hour is easy. It's comfortable. I'm actually doing that right now. But my cardio has been up to close to like 110 minutes. So a 60-minute session and a 50-minute session. So you've got to put those at, two different times throughout the day because I'm not doing 110 minutes, solid.
I've talked to some psychopaths that would disagree, but thank God you're not one of those.
Yeah, no, I don't do that. So I would chunk it to two different sessions. When that starts happening and then your food starts getting lower, that's where it becomes kind of more of a dreaded situation because you're tired.
If you ever once think to yourself, am I doing too much? Just remember that I'll tell you this. I had one guest who would do 3 hours a day uninterrupted of cardio.
I don't think I'd do it.
So next time you're thinking like, am I doing too much? Do I need to focus on other things in life? Just remember that there is someone out there who's doing that much, and then just realize that, hey, at least I'm not that person. Because, when I heard that, I just wanted to like pause the podcast and be like, I can give you the number for someone that can help you. Like what's going on here? So again, but on top of that, another mental aspect question. The moment you start this sport, you are never big enough. You are never good enough. I find it hilarious at times that I have some of the most in shape people on the planet on, and they still will tell you that they are not good enough. And you're like some of the guests I told you were like, they have trouble literally fitting in the screen. And they're like, I still have areas I need to improve on. I was like,
yeah.
Like what? Not being able to breathe? What, you want your neck even bigger or something? But it's just, I understand it, but at the same time, as someone who's never really competed, I still, from the outsider's perspective, just think it's hilarious that like you are that in shape. But how do you deal with the body dysmorphia and the fact that like no matter what you do, you're always gonna tear yourself apart, really, no matter what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just digress for a moment and share that, being a mom of two girls, it's really important for me to not focus so much on the physical aspect and talk about things
I was
like,
gonna ask you that as the next question, literally.
oh, really? Okay, so I'm gonna, if you don't mind me addressing that
The
first.
less I have to talk, the better. Go ahead. Take your time.
So I would say that, it's important. I never wanted to talk about weight. I never wanted them to hear me talk about like I feel fat or like if I want to enjoy a cookie, afterwards, like, oh, like I just feel so fat, or comment on somebody's physical, somebody else and their physical nature, because I kind of heard that when I grew up, and it's something kind of the buck stops with me, right? I wanted to raise them to understand that I work out to be healthy, to be strong, and I'm going to eat that cookie and not feel bad about it, right? Not think that I have to like work it off in 50 minutes of cardio because it's not going to be worked off anyway. So it's interesting.
You never know, it could.
So based on that, it's a polar opposite of what I'm actually doing. Like I'm literally placing myself on stage and being judged on my physical nature, right? I think, I don't know. I understand the sport. I know that there will always be areas for me to improve. And I think because I am so new, I know, I know that I need to grow. Like, I didn't get my full feedback from North Americans, but I did get to speak with Sandy. And, I do need to I need to grow my back. I need to build muscle density. And this is something that we've known, and it's just going to wind up taking time, right? For the competitors that have been doing this for a really long time and they look solid, that's where I think, they will always have to be fine tuned as well. I don't know how they personally deal with it, but for me, I'm a sponge at this point, right? Like, if you were to tell me I need to grow my back, I would agree with you 100%. Like, yeah, I actually do, and I can't grow it fast enough. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
No, absolutely. I mean, the hilarious thing is that I was the exact opposite, where I put weights in my pocket before I was getting weighed, so I would make the heavyweight football team in 8th grade. So that's a little bit different. That's one of the funny things that I've learned in this podcast and talking to so many women is just how, as the sexes, we view weight so much differently. Where I talk to guys for their off season, they're like, "Thank God I get to put on some weight and stuff like that, and I get to eat." Whereas the women, it can be a little bit of the opposite too. So I enjoy that I've been able to understand that and get a better perspective of that as well. But now, I mean, okay, so you don't have to answer this. We can edit this out if you don't want to, but I just wanted to ask about the fact that you are competing against a lot of people that are on maybe steroids and how you deal with the fact that, like, being natural. If you don't want to talk about it, it's fine, but.
yeah, no, I would say, and for anybody that is not aware, I've shared I'm a natural competitor. I'm not enhanced. I'm gonna ride this wave as long as I possibly can.
I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about those shoulders enhanced. It would be absolutely ridiculous. Good God.
And that's this. People kind of get blown away. They think that because you are in bodybuilding, like, you're on steroids. And I'm sure that there are women that look at me at the gym and say to themselves, she's got to be on steroids. But I'm not. And, I think you just have to understand that it's not frowned upon, right? It's kind of accepted. And nobody really cares. Like, I don't care. If somebody chooses to do that, then that's on them. That's on, their health. That's their choice.
Well, I was just going to say, like, how do you deal with that mentally, knowing that you're competing against people that have, like, such a bigger advantage than you?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of focus on the fact that there are natural athletes and they're doing quite well. And so, no, I might not be like this physique, but there are, certain other women where that's more of what is attractive and obtainable to me. So I think it's just personal preference, right? And I'm fine with that.
Absolutely. And I love it. I love it because my whole thing, and I've said it a million times, but I'll say it again, is that I don't care if you're on PEDs or not. The only thing I care about is if you try to sell, like, a workout program to someone, say, you can look just like me if you just do my workout program. And it's like, dude, I can see veins in your veins, basically. Like, it's like, come on, people. So that's the only time. But otherwise, it's like, yeah, you still got to put in the hard work. But again, I appreciate and admire the fact that you're natural, because I do think that there needs to be more of that. And the natural federations too need to have a bigger say, honestly, because I just think that it's, again, I would never take anything myself, but I would prefer, to have a little bit more natural coverage, because it is that much more impressive. But just in this sport in general, you've been in it for, like you said, only a year. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, Brandi, you can make a change to one thing about this sport and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
I actually think there needs to be a different division. I think there
between
it will kind of take wellness out of the mix, because that's, obviously fairly new as well. But really, between like a bikini competitor and a figure competitor, kind of like somebody like me. If I could make a division for myself, I would do that. And I say that because I'm kind of building on what we were just talking about. I mean, some of these figure girls are just insane, right? It's kind of getting bigger.
We got
But
we got some future NFL linebackers in figure now, so it's like, good God.
but like, I don't know, like fit figure, kind of like someone who is a little bit more muscular than a bikini competitor. They have more muscle, but they don't have a ton of muscle like some of the figure competitors, right? Kind of something in between. If NPC would listen to me about that, then that would be amazing.
They will for sure listen to the woman that's done this sport for 1 year and just be like, you know what, Brandi, we made the decision based on your insight. We're gonna do. No, I'm just kidding, but no, I agree with you. Where there needs to be even more divisions because let's be honest, the moment they announce bikini on stage, people just know, oh, we're gonna be here for 3.5 hours. So
I feel bad. I'm actually so happy. That was what I was targeting, and now like that I see what happens at these shows. These poor girls, especially the tall bikini competitors, they're there for the long haul.
Being 6'3" myself, I will always have a soft spot for the tall people that I have on the podcast. They own a special place in my heart. So whenever I have a tall guest on, I'm just like, okay, we can connect a little bit because you understand. But yeah, it's just I would do that honestly as well. There needs to be different divisions because and the criteria for these divisions need to be so much better examined and really stated because you have enigmas of what people can look like on opposite sides of the spectrum for each division. It's just we need to find a more localized, this is exactly what we're looking for. Just have a model and just be like, this is what we want, really. Just try your best to look like this instead. But it is, it's a sport where it's a judgment sport as well. And it really does, just depend on the judges as well. But if someone were to also walk up to you and say, I've been really thinking about getting into shape and really starting to, hit the weights, what would be the best piece of advice that you would give them?
Someone who is looking to compete and hit the weights, or just in general?
We could do either or.
Okay. I would say that for the, novice looking to start lifting, just to give it time, right? Like, I think it's interesting that women think if they, I think this is changing. So I don't want to make too much of a generalization, but you'll hear people talk about or women like they're afraid. Like women would look at me and be afraid that their arms are gonna look like mine. It's gonna take time, right, to build.
And if it doesn't, you will hire them as your trainer, basically.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, giving yourself time, making sure that your nutrition is on point. I think that that's something else that is changing. Like when I was in my 20s and I was wanting to lose weight, I was essentially starving myself, right? Like 1,200 calories and doing all the things, the activity. Now understanding that I wasn't feeding myself properly. So in order to build muscle, it's going to take a lot of, honing in on your diet and, making sure that you have that proper support as well for what you need to do from a nutrition perspective. It's not just, going to the gym and lifting. It's kind of, those are married together. And then for somebody who's maybe been lifting for a little while and then they're interested in maybe competing, I would say like really talk to a couple different competitors to get their perspective. Because if somebody were to ask me, I don't think I was prepared for the time element of everything, how much time it would take. And I had been lifting and going to the gym, but like when you've got, a certain program and you're not just lifting how you want to lift and just lifting for 30 minutes, right? It's a lot more time involved for the lifting, the cardio, the prepping your food. So yeah, just kind of talk to a couple different people and get their perspective.
When it comes to prepping your food, are there any time hacks that you use that you would like to share on how you can prep food maybe in the quickest time possible? Because I went to interview a guest live in person. It's one of the two that I did in person, and I filmed a little bit of her food prepping, and I was just like, this could be done so much quicker. But is there anything that you do that like speeds up prepping food time? Because I've talked to some people where they just spend an entire day doing it. It's like, got to figure out something.
Yeah, so for me, what works for me, and just because I'm typically home a lot, I batch cook my chicken. I'm usually putting it on the grill unless it's like snowing outside. That's my preferred method. So I'm, making a lot of chicken ahead of time. I don't pre-portion it out. I just use a scale for different meals. So that's one aspect. From a carb perspective, I usually stick with potatoes, so sweet potatoes or gold potatoes. I have an air fryer. I love to make them in the air fryer. Again, batch cooking them. I like to have frozen rice on hand. So yeah, you can make rice if you've got a rice cooker or an Instapot, and I've done that in the past as well. But like Trader Joe's has the microwavable bags. Takes like, I don't know, 3 minutes. Those are super easy and they taste really good. The texture of the rice is really good. And then from a veggie perspective, I have, I think it's from Pampered Chef, but I'm sure that they make them. They're just like a microwavable bowl. So I make my vegetables fresh. I steam them. So I'll weigh them in there, steam them, and then eat them fresh like that. So I'm not too big into frozen vegetables. And I don't like to batch cook them because then they kind of get soggy. So I cook my veggies fresh.
Well, and you mentioned before your daughters, what are their opinions on having a more muscular mom than most of their other friends and stuff? Because I had a friend growing up who had both parents were just super yoked, and it was the topic of conversation for us in like kindergarten and first grade and the younger years. So what are their thoughts about it?
I don't know that they understand or they compare me to anyone else or understand that their mom is different. I will say, which is an interesting story, yesterday, the girls, um, I picked them up from the bus. They came home from school, and my youngest got off, and she's like, Mommy, this little boy said that my mommy was fat. And I said, Isabella, I seriously doubt that he even knows who your mommy is. He was like a fifth grader, just telling a kindergartner, just trying to get a reaction. And I was like, so my oldest, who's 7, she's like, well, I was going to tell him that our mommy could probably beat up your daddy.
Yep.
Which I thought was funny.
No.
So
yeah, it's just always hilarious how kids, because since kids have like no filters at all, it's interesting just to hear their opinions on things because it is that. But when we do have you on in a year, I'd love to have you back on to share what you've been up to. What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved, and where would you like to be at overall a year from today?
So a year from today, I will have liked to have competed at another national show. I think I've got Masters in Pittsburgh in July targeted. So that's my goal. I'm going to do some growing improvement season between now and then, and hopefully get first call outs. So I know a lot of people have like a pro card targeted. For me, I understand that I'm so new at this. There is absolutely zero expectation of obtaining a pro card. I don't want to, I want to earn it. I want to work for it. I don't want, I don't want it to be like this thing that I acquire within a year or 2 years. So for me, short-term goals, competing next year at another national show, possibly doing a regional show before that for a warm up, and then hopefully making first call outs.
Well, if you saw me roll my eyes a little bit when you said master show, it's because literally, if I was working there, I'd be like, okay, I need to see some ID. Let's be honest here. Like, what are you trying? Are you trying to cheat the bodybuilding? Because yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you.
Hey, trust. Hey, I'm just trying to put that out there, so maybe one of these days when I'm your age, someone will say that to me. I'm just putting them. No, I'm just kidding. But like, it's impressive. I've had so many guests that yeah, it really. If there's any benefit or anything that anyone wants to plug by saying like this is the benefits of working out, a few photos of you and a couple other guests. I mean, that just about really does it when it comes to that. But lastly, before we wrap things up, I like to talk about coaches, because the thing with coaches is that there's, from the amount of guests I've talked to, it seems to be there's so many more bad coaches than there are good coaches, just because there's so many of them. In your own experience and opinion, what to you makes a coach a good coach? Because it varies from person to person, but I've always just liked to know like what individually a person requires in a coach, because there are some aspects that carry on from competitor to competitor.
So I've been very lucky that I've had the same coach since I started this journey, and it's a coach that's extremely approachable. I think a coach that is timely with giving you, like your weekly adjustments, your macros, what your workout plans are, that template's changing, every 4 weeks. Somebody who's, kind of on it from an admin perspective. I don't want a coach that's going to be easy on me, right? Like, I want them to get me from point A to point B. And I know that that also takes some learning as well, because every body is individual. So it might take a few preps to get it right. But for me, it's, being able to openly communicate, have that type of relationship. Somebody that's going to, show up for you, be there for you. And, that has that experience in getting somebody, where they need to go.
That, and my 2 cents is you just have to be such a good judge of knowing when to push and when to lay off too. Like, you need to be able to judge a person so well, because there are times where people have just accidentally maybe pushed their client just a little too hard at the wrong time. I'm not talking about just like with protocols or anything. I'm talking about like maybe had them do extra reps or just, and really just sour the relationship. You really need to be a very good judge of a person.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, you have to get your therapy license basically too. You're basically a free therapist, so you have to at least find a way to make money off of that, I guess.
Yeah, I do. I have said that my coach was like my coach, a friend, and my therapist. Because there were times, she is local, that I would meet with her and we would do like a personal training session. And so, hearing about maybe all the things that were happening at home, or, just trying to validate that my feelings were kind of spot on or accurate, or whether I was overreacting. Yeah, that definitely took place with my coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Yeah, my coach, Rosie Mosier. She's been fantastic for me, getting me through these 3 shows, actually 4 shows total, that we've done. And of course, my husband, Mark, for being such a supportive spouse and dad, and just giving me the general support needed on this venture. And then my girls, for supporting their mama as well.
It's one of the reasons I love doing these, because my goal is like maybe 10 years from now, your daughters view this when they're a lot older and just realize all this stuff. Like I did, my favorite podcast that I've done on this topic is I had 8-month pregnant with twins mom on. And then I figure when their kids turn of age, it'd be cool to see a podcast that their mom did when she was 8 months pregnant. But that's one of the little things that I really enjoy about this. But again, everyone, go and give Brandi a follow. I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below. I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey with us. You were an absolute delight to talk to, and I look forward to seeing where you're at a year from now. And I look forward to just following you and But just please don't post as many shoulder shots because it's getting embarrassing already enough as it is. Just please be humble a little bit with that. You have the goods, so just realize that there's a time and a place. No, I'm just kidding. But again, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, all right, everyone. This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.